Hello everybody and welcome to Sin City Living. My name is Jason. I'm bringing you today's episode. As always, please hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we'd like to give our usual shout out to our patrons. We appreciate all the tips and support. It's only going to go towards making the channel better and adding more games. That is our ultimate goal. We would love to add roulette to our channel. So, for today, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the concept of down with odds and exactly what that means. Okay, so we're going to mark a point. We're going to say the point is 4, okay? And we'll say that the player has a line bet with odds. We'll do 3 times odds, 3, 4, 5. So the player then decides that they want to go 54 across. They throw in their $54. We go ahead and go across. And then next, the player goes ahead and places a come bet. Okay, this happens. This doesn't happen super often, but it happens often enough that there are procedures involved with this. Full procedures as far as come bets go and things like that will be in our instructional how to deal videos, but we are going to cover one of the more basic ones because this happens a lot. Especially the confusion that can occur. This tends to happen with players that have learned the place bets and then have seen somebody playing the come bets, maybe ask them a couple of questions, and we're taught into playing the come bets. Now, if you've seen our other videos comparing come bets to place bets, you'll understand that unless you're on a 10 or 20 times odds table, come bets don't make sense. It's not beneficial to you in any way, shape, or form to do come bets instead of place bets. You're almost always better off doing place bets unless you're on a 10 or 20 times table, at which point it's only beneficial if you're doing max odds. So, what occurs when your come bet travels? Well, let's say that let's say a 6 rolls. So, a 6 rolls, the first thing that happens here is the come bets travel, because we always deal with come bets before we deal with place bets. It's something that confuses a lot of dealers. They tend to get things scrambled, but we always deal with every come bet before we deal with the place bets. So now that your come bet has traveled, now the dealer is going to pay you, and if they are any good whatsoever, before they even start cutting out the money, they're going to ask, what would you like for odds? This is where the confusion comes in all the time. By proper procedure, and you see, I'm not going to say a lot, but you do see some less skilled or rookie dealers that mess this up by asking, would you like any odds? The player hems and haws, so they say, okay, no odds, and they hand them off their place bet payoff of $14 off this $12 place bet, and that is, by proper procedure, wrong. There is nothing wrong with leaving a place bet up with a come bet if the player asks. There's absolutely nothing wrong with double parking it. It doesn't make sense in a situation like this to do a come bet with no odds and then a place bet. That also makes 0 sense. So hopefully the dealer will educate the player on what's best for the player and how they can make more money. But the proper procedure, if the player does not specifically ask for their come bet, for their place bet to stay there, the proper procedure is the place bet comes down. Now, if I'm dealing and I only have one player, I have a lot more time to communicate with the player, and I'm going to help them out. So we come to this, and I say, what would you like? Would you like any odds for your 6? Now, you notice I haven't actually touched any of the money yet. And the reason for this is I don't want to bring the money out and then bring it back so I can fix the payout. So if the player says anything for odds, we're going to cut. Actually, it doesn't really matter what they say. We're going to cut out $15 for 1. We're going to pull all the money out. Now, if they're still hemming and hawing, this is where you stop. Or if you're a rookie dealer, this is where you ask them if they would like any odds. You can certainly start off with paying out first. So the 6 rolls, we travel their come bet. Now we go ahead, cut this out, and go, what would you like for odds? And the player hems and haws, because a lot of players that have just learned this are clueless here. I have no idea what that means. Now, if it's only one player, then I have time to educate them on what come bets are and how they're like pass line bets, and you have the opportunity for odds. A good dealer in a situation like this, especially if it's a busy table, are going to encourage the player. If they have a $12 place bet, the dealer is going to say, would you like 10 odds? Because more often than not, if the player doesn't know what they're doing, they're just going to say yes. They're going to say yes, and the dealer's going to give them their 10 odds. And give them the rest of the money. If they don't say anything, we can't automatically give them odds. We would just return all their money to them, and they have their come bet, and that is it. Okay. So they do their next come bet. Let's say 8 rolls. Okay. Would you like any odds? Yes, I'd like 25 odds. Okay, awesome. This is called down with odds. We give them 25, and they get their dollar back. We paid 25 for 11, gave them their dollar back, and used the 25 for the odds. It's called down with odds because the place bet comes down with odds. More often than not, it gets turned into the odds. Okay? That is the proper way of dealing with place bets and come bets. See, a lot of dealers mess this up. The place bets automatically come down by procedure unless the player specifically asks to keep a place bet and a come bet, which again doesn't make sense except in some very rare situations. So the dealer should automatically do that. They should automatically come down. This is what gets so many players. They don't understand the odds. They don't understand that they can do odds. And they will take their place bets down. They won't do odds. Now they're making less money. You know, if this player comes out to here, we go ahead and pay it out. Would you like any odds? Okay. No odds, and we move on to the next player because we don't have time to sit there and explain out a bet that the player should already know if they are betting. It's a more advanced bet. Now, if we don't have a lot of other players, we don't have a fast-moving game, or this player happens to be the shooter, because you can take all the time in the world if it's the shooter. There's no hurry. Then we'll explain it to them as best we can. But if it's a busy table, there's only so much time we have to explain it without impacting the experience in the game for every other player. So we end up having to keep it short. That's why we try to encourage people to only bet bets that you really understand how they work. Don't bet a new bet because you saw it, you think it's cool, or somebody told you it works well. Because if a dealer didn't tell you it's a smart bet, then it's probably not a smart bet. And there's few things that we dislike more than hearing players give other players bad or wrong advice. Unfortunately, we can't interject, but it's really frustrating for us. We will interject if a player is criticizing another player's playing style. I do that all the time. I'll say, you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with how he's playing, and that's how he chooses to play. Because I don't like it when people try and mock other players' playing style because it doesn't happen to fit with their particular playing style. But this come bets, just like don't come bets, are when people ask, oh, what's that? What's the come? And they're brand new players. That's when I get that question the most, is when people tell me, oh, it's my first time ever playing dice. Then about 10 minutes into it, oh, what's a come bet? I always say it's a very advanced bet. Most players are going to go, oh, okay. And they're just going to leave it alone because they don't want to get into that yet. They're barely understanding what's already going on. And that's the thing with the come bets is a lot of dealers have difficulty with the come bets when they're learning craps. So as players, try not to play something you don't understand. The come bet is extremely simple. It's just a brand new line bet. But that concept, it's so hard to get into people's heads that it's just starting a brand new game. Win-loss conditions are the same, and the come as would be on the pass line during a come-out roll. You can get odds. It's the same odds, 3, 4, 5, if that's where you're at, double or 10 times or 20 times, whatever it may be, wherever you were at, 100 times. The concept of put bets, putting the point, all of that stuff, it's a little bit more advanced for the average player. And it doesn't make sense. Unless you're betting 10 times odds or 20 times odds, it makes absolutely zero sense to be doing a come bet versus a place bet. So I try not to bet something that you don't fully understand, but this causes a ton of confusion for players and for dealers. Place bets automatically come down. You should do odds with it, called down with odds. If not, again, it makes no sense to do it without odds. This player had a $10 place bet that would have paid them $14. Now they have a $10 come bet that pays them $10. It makes no sense. Why would you do that? You should get odds. You should definitely get odds. Or you know, you could leave your $10 as a place bet. Again, you're allowed to do that. You just need to ask. You can leave your $10 there, but now you're making $1 less. 10 pays 14, whereas 10 in odds over here would pay 15. So again, better off with coming down with odds. But again, you know, this right here would pay you $25. If you had the same dollar amount on a place bet, it would pay you $28. So again, unless you're 10 times odds and playing max odds, it doesn't make sense to be doing place bets. Or come bets, I'm sorry. Now, what's the last thing to keep in mind? Last thing to keep in mind is unless you have another come bet out, if you're playing a 2 or 3 point Molly system, so let's just suggest this player's playing a 3 point Molly system. They're now on 3 come bets. They're good, they're done, they're finished. They're going to wait and see what happens. If one of these wins, then they're going to do another come bet. If a come bet wins, it comes down. It's over, it's done, its game has ended. Now, yes, you can keep it up there, but again, you have to very specifically ask. You have to say, I want to stay in there. It's called a put bet, right? Same thing as if you were to skip the come and just immediately put your come bet into a number. You can do that. Again, put bets are allowed at most casinos. It is within the rules of the game. Some casinos don't allow it because, well, honestly, they're not very strong, the boxes and the dealers. But put bets are within the rules of the game. However, if you're doing come bets to begin with, you're probably not going to put it right afterwards. So the come bet is going to come down. This is where a lot of players also screw themselves up. So let's say a 6 rolls. This is going to be off for $22. Okay. Now, a good dealer is going to say, hey, by the way, you have no place bet here. You have no bet on the 6 anymore, especially if they started out with an across bet, so they had a place bet there the first time the come traveled. A good dealer is going to say, hey, you've got no bet over here. Do you want to bet? A really good dealer is going to be paying this out and go, off for $22, I'm going to go ahead and give you your $12 place bet back, okay? And the player's going to say, oh, yeah, thanks. Good to go. If the dealer doesn't do that, as the player, you need to be aware that you no longer have a bet when your come bet comes down and you need to place it again. A lot of players forget to do that. A lot of players do remember it as well. Just depends on your experience level with the come bets. But people get snagged by that all the time. A 6 rolls, their new come bet travels, and they're like, well, I'm not getting paid for anything. You didn't have a place bet there. Sorry. So make sure you're very aware of come bets, the rules, and how they work if you're going to play them. If you are dealing them, make sure you are aware of proper procedure so that you can do it correctly, so that you can show that you know what you're doing. And I hope this helps you guys, maybe answers any questions you may have or clarifies things that you may have been a little foggy on. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. We will catch you guys next time. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Bye.